Welcome everyone for my picks and analysis for FIFA Men's World Cup Qatar 2022. Group H, Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea and Ghana. Big group this one. Cristiano Ronaldo, possibly his last World Cup. How will the four teams do? Let's get underway right away with a look at South Korea. South Korea first up in Group H, and it's their 11th appearance at the World Cup, 10th consecutive, the longest run among the non-European and South American teams at this World Cup. Best performance of 4th in 2002 when they co-hosted with Japan. In 2018 they went out at the group stage, however a memorable win over Germany in their last fixture to put the defending champions out of the tournament. Great win for South Korea in that match. Now, they finished second in qualifying in their group in Asia to Saudi Arabia. Some pretty decent form since qualifying. They've only lost the one game in their last 9, a 3-0 reverse to Japan. In that run, they've beaten Chile, Iceland, Egypt, and they've beaten fellow qualifiers Cameroon. Now, a lot of casual football fans look at South Korea and consider them to be Son Heung-min and 10 other guys. The Tottenham Hotspurs legend. However, that might be a little bit unfair. Son Heung-min is playing in the tournament after suffering a facial fracture against Marseille in the Champions League. He'll be playing with a protective mask throughout the tournament and will be very, very important. Also, Kim Min-jae, the Napoli central defender, first South Korean central defender to be a regular starter for a top European club. He will be key in the South Korean defence. Wolverhampton Wanderers fans will note with some interest that Hwang Hee-chan, in and out of the side in the last 2 years, is also in the South Korean squad. They're facing off against Ghana, Uruguay and Portugal. And Uruguay and Portugal probably looking at South Korea as beatable opposition. And this plays, in my opinion, straight into South Korea's hands. They play at their best when teams are having a go at them. I love the way they play. It's almost like a rope-a-dope. They'll play a high press, then suddenly nick the ball, blitz down the field, and it's 1-0 South Korea. Be interesting to see how they handle the Portugal and Uruguay midfield. They'll be looking at the Ghana fixture as more winnable. But some very interesting games. Korea will really have a go. Let's see how they do. Predictions a little bit later. Portugal appearing at the World Cup finals for the 8th time. Almost feels unbelievable saying that, considering their status in world football. You'd think that number would be higher, but it is only 8. Best performance of 3rd in 1966 on debut. In 2018, they went out in the round of 16 to Uruguay, their opponents in Group H at this World Cup, so they will be looking for a bit of revenge and redemption. They finished second in their qualification group in Europe to Serbia and then qualified via the playoffs, beating North Macedonia in the playoff final. Nothing of note really since then fixture-wise. A couple of wins against non-qualifiers, 2 losses to Spain and Switzerland. Their last 6 games, they've only conceded 2 goals in those 2 1-0 defeats. Not surprising, really, looking at their player roster. Very, very impressive defence. Diego Dalot, the Manchester United defender, and the Man City duo of Ruben Diaz and João Cancelo. No wonder Portugal is shutting out teams. And that's not to mention Cristiano Ronaldo, 37 years old, leading the line for one last World Cup. We would think it's his last World Cup. Leading international goal scorer of all time on 117. Should he score one more goal in this tournament, he'll be the first player ever to score in 5 different World Cups. You wouldn't want to bet against him putting one past Ghana in the opening group fixture. So, Ronaldo, people talking about Messi's last tournament and can he win it for Argentina? No one really talking about Ronaldo winning it for Portugal, and that probably annoys him. And I think he'll be on a mission to prove everyone wrong. Portugal very strong in midfield alongside him. Bruno Fernandes from Manchester United. Ruben Neves from Wolverhampton Wanderers, also key. Ghana first up for Portugal, followed by that pivotal group clash against Uruguay in the second game. That will determine the complexity of their entire tournament. South Korea to round out their three fixtures. How will Portugal do? On paper, always competitive, very strong, hard to look past. We'll see. Predictions coming up later in the video. On to Uruguay, and it's their 14th World Cup appearance. They're almost always there. Of course, winners in 1930 and 1950. They won the first World Cup in 1930. In 2018, they went out in the quarterfinals to eventual winners France. Uruguay finished third in South American qualifying to Brazil and Argentina. Not much of note in the 5 matches since qualification. A comprehensive win over Mexico. Of concern, a loss to Iran. Going into any tournament, Uruguay always regarded as a very physical side, perhaps a rough side that bend the rules to some extent. That reputation completely turned on its head in 2018, with Uruguay conceding the fewest free kicks and yellow cards per minutes played of all the 32 sides, going in as villains and emerging as fair play darlings. Will be interesting to see whether that trend continues in 2022. Lots of recognisable names in the squad, very impressive lineup, particularly in the forward line. Luis Suarez, familiar name to everyone, 35 years old, his last World Cup. Suarez plays every friendly available for Uruguay. He loves playing for Uruguay and always lifts. He will be front and centre as he has been in past World Cups. Edinson Cavani, also likely to feature. Darwin Núñez from Liverpool will be there as well. Rodrigo Bentancur from Spurs, hitting top form at just the right time going into the tournament. So some top players there going forward for Uruguay. Of note, Diego Godin still kicking around with the national side at the back, ex-Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan, 36 years old. He will be key as well. How will Uruguay do? Well, they've got Ghana first up, followed by a pivotal match against Portugal, the second game, and that will determine how they will fare in the World Cup, I would suggest, and whether or not they will top the group or go through it all. South Korea last up. So good luck to Uruguay. I think they're a very strong team, and dark horses, not mentioned as potential winners, but they will always be there and about and give a good account of themselves. Let's see how Uruguay do. Predictions later. Ghana make their 4th appearance at the World Cup, having topped their group in African qualifying over South Africa on goal difference, also beating Nigeria in a bit of an upset in the African playoffs. Best performance for Ghana at the World Cup 2010. They made the quarterfinals back then, the last African team to reach the final 8. In 2018, they didn't qualify, and it's good to have Ghana back at the World Cup. Some scratchy form, bit of indifferent form since qualifying. They beat Switzerland, they beat Nicaragua, lost heavily to Japan and Brazil. So a few mixed results there. Ghana are the lowest ranked team in the tournament, according to the latest FIFA men's rankings. It's a ranking I find almost hard to believe. And in fact, against Portugal, their game in the group stages will be the biggest disparity between two teams according to the rankings. 9th ranked Portugal versus 61st ranked Ghana. However, looking at the squad, very decent lineup from top to bottom, really. On paper, at least, one of the better sides and possibly even the best non-European and South American side in the tournament on their day. So they could pull out a couple of surprise results. Recognisable names in the Ghanaian squad: Tariq Lamptey, the pocket dynamo for Brighton, in the lineup. Also Daniel Amati, a regular in the Leicester defence, and Thomas Partey, the Arsenal midfielder, will be pulling the strings. Jordan Ayew, the Crystal Palace striker, also likely to feature, perhaps as an impact substitute. How will Ghana do? Well, they won't be pushovers, and it'll depend the trajectory of their tournament based on that first game against Portugal. May affect their tactics in later games. They'll give Portugal a good go. Some ageing legs in that Portuguese side and a lot of pace with Ghana. Be very interesting to see how they do. I'd love to see Ghana do well and progress. Predictions later in the video. So there we have our lineup for Group H: Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay and South Korea. I'm going to go in something of an upset, perhaps Uruguay to top this group, and followed by Portugal scraping in to second spot. Well, that wraps up our look at Group H: Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea and Ghana. Best of luck to all four teams. From this point, we're going to look at the previous predictions from the other groups and try to analyse the bracket and see who might make it through to the final. So here we have my round of 16 based on my predictions in the previous videos. The first half of the draw: Netherlands versus USA, Argentina versus France, Spain versus Belgium, Brazil versus Portugal. Very impressive round of 16 fixtures there. And I'm going for Netherlands, France, Spain and Brazil to progress to the quarterfinals. Second half of the draw: England versus Qatar, Denmark versus Mexico, Croatia versus Germany, Uruguay versus Serbia. Very interesting fixtures there as well. And from that lot, I'm going for England, Denmark, Croatia and Uruguay to advance to the quarters, which leaves us with a quarterfinal lineup as follows: Netherlands versus France, Spain versus Brazil, England versus Denmark and Croatia versus Uruguay. And some big matches there if they happen. Winning those games, I see Netherlands, Brazil, England and Uruguay, which leads us to a semi-final lineup, which will be a miracle if it comes to pass this way. Netherlands versus Brazil, England versus Uruguay. This is all based on my bracket selections in those two semi-finals. Great for the World Cup. Europe versus South America in both. And I'm going for Brazil and England to win their semi-finals, which gives us a dream final of Brazil versus England, which I predict Brazil to win. All a bit of good fun. Hope you enjoyed the videos. Thank you for watching. Apologies for the sound and camera issues occasionally. I will work to rectify those sometime in the next 4 years. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games and see you in the next one. Bye for now.